The morning sky above Nebraska turned dark without warning. Jake Morrison looked up from his cornfield, wiping sweat from his forehead with a dirty work glove. The clouds moved in a strange way, too fast and too organized. Then he saw them. Massive ships hung in the air like floating cities. They were made of what looked like black crystal, catching the sunlight and throwing it back in rainbow colors. The ships were silent, which made them even more frightening. Jake had never seen anything like them, but he knew they were not from Earth. His daughter Amy came running from the house, her phone in her hand. "Dad, you need to see this." "They're everywhere. Over every major city on Earth." Jake took the phone and watched the news. The reporter's voice shook as she spoke. "We can confirm that alien vessels have appeared over New York, London, Tokyo, and dozens of other cities worldwide. The ships appear to be waiting for something." The largest ship hung directly above their farm. Jake felt small standing in his cornfield, looking up at something that could probably hold his entire town inside it. He had been farming this land for 20 years, ever since his father died. His grandfather had farmed here before that. The Morrison family had always taken care of this piece of Earth, and now aliens were floating above it. "What do you think they want?" Amy asked. She was 16 and usually acted like she knew everything. Today she sounded scared. "I don't know, sweetheart, but we should probably get inside and see what the government has to say about this." They walked back to the farmhouse, a simple white building that Jake's grandfather had built with his own hands. Inside, they turned on every news channel they could find. The president was supposed to speak soon, but nobody seemed to know what was happening. Then the ships began to broadcast. The voice that came from every TV, radio, and phone on Earth was deep and powerful. It spoke English, but with an accent nobody had ever heard before. "People of Earth, I am Admiral Zekthor, King of the Corvani Empire. We come not as enemies, but as conquerors who honor the old ways." Jake sat down hard in his favorite chair. Amy grabbed his arm. The voice continued. "For 1,000 years we have expanded across the galaxy. We have brought 17 worlds under our protection, but we are not without honor. Before we claim a world, we give its people a chance to prove their worth through combat." The TV showed images of the alien speaking. He was huge, at least 8 feet tall, with blue-gray skin that looked like armor plating. His eyes were yellow and seemed to glow in the light. He wore robes that sparkled like the ships themselves. "According to our traditions, your world must choose a champion. This champion will face me in single combat. If your champion wins, Earth will remain free under our protection. If your champion loses, Earth becomes part of our empire. You have 7 days to decide." The broadcast ended, leaving every human on the planet staring at silent screens. Jake looked at Amy. "Well, that's not something you hear every day." The next few days were chaos. World leaders argued about who should fight the alien king. Military experts appeared on TV, talking about special forces soldiers and martial arts masters. Everyone had an opinion about who Earth's champion should be. Jake tried to ignore most of it. He had corn to harvest and equipment to fix. The aliens might be floating above his farm, but the work still needed to be done. Amy helped him in the fields, though she spent most of her time checking her phone for updates. On the 4th day, government cars started showing up at farms and small towns all over America. Nobody knew why until Dr. Helen Carter knocked on Jake's door. She was a thin woman with gray hair and kind eyes behind thick glasses. The man with her introduced himself as Colonel Pete Rodriguez. He was shorter than Jake, but looked like he could bench press a truck. "Mr. Morrison," Dr. Carter said, "we need to talk to you about the alien situation." Jake invited them in and made coffee. It seemed like the polite thing to do, even if he had no idea why they were there. "The aliens have been scanning our planet," Dr. Carter explained. "They claim they can identify each world's greatest champion using their technology. Someone who represents the best of what humanity can offer." "Okay," Jake said. "So who did they pick? Some Navy SEAL? An Olympic athlete?" Colonel Rodriguez looked uncomfortable. "Actually, Mr. Morrison, they picked you." Jake laughed. "That's a good joke. I'm just a farmer." "We're not joking," Dr. Carter said softly. 3 hours ago, Admiral Zekthor announced that their scanners had identified Earth's champion. Jake Morrison of Morrison Farm, Nebraska. The coffee mug slipped from Jake's hand and shattered on the kitchen floor. Amy stared at her father with wide eyes. "There has to be a mistake," Jake said. "I've never even been in a real fight. I fix tractors and grow corn. I'm nobody special." "The aliens don't seem to think so," Colonel Rodriguez said. They've requested that you report to their ship within 3 days to begin preparations for the combat. Jake stood up and walked to the window. He could see the alien ship hanging in the sky above his cornfield. What if I say no? Then they'll probably just start their conquest without the combat, Dr. Carter said. Billions of people will die. Amy finally spoke up. Dad, you have to do it. Sweetheart, I can't fight an 8-foot-tall alien warrior. I wouldn't last 10 seconds. You don't know that, Amy said. Remember when the bank tried to take the farm after Mom died? You fought them for 2 years and won. Remember when the tornado hit and everyone said the crops were ruined? You found a way to save half the harvest. You never give up on anything. Jake looked at his daughter and saw her mother's determination in her eyes. Lisa had always believed he could do anything. Even when the cancer was winning, she had told him he was the strongest man she knew. The aliens must see something in you, Dr. Carter said. Their technology is far beyond ours. If they chose you, there has to be a reason. Jake looked out at his cornfield one more time. His grandfather had cleared this land with nothing but an axe and a mule. His father had kept the farm going through drought and depression. Now it was Jake's turn to protect what mattered. He turned back to the government people. When do we start? Jake woke up the next morning hoping it had all been a bad dream. Then he saw the alien ship through his bedroom window and knew his life had changed forever. He got dressed in his usual work clothes and went downstairs to make breakfast. Amy was already in the kitchen, reading something on her tablet. Dad, you're famous. Look at this. She showed him news articles from around the world. Nebraska farmer chosen to save Earth. Unlikely hero must face alien king. Will Jake Morrison be humanity's savior? I didn't ask for any of this, Jake muttered, pouring coffee. Nobody asks to be a hero, Dad, but sometimes you don't get a choice. After breakfast, more government cars arrived. This time they brought a whole team of people. Military trainers, scientists, doctors, and advisors filled Jake's living room. Colonel Rodriguez introduced everyone, but Jake couldn't remember all their names. Dr. Carter pulled out a tablet and showed him pictures of the alien king. Admiral Zekthor is from a warrior race called the Corvani. They've been conquering worlds for centuries, but they always follow the same ritual. Single combat between champions. Have any of the other champions won? Jake asked. The room got quiet. Not yet, Dr. Carter admitted. But every species is different. Humans might have advantages the others didn't. A fitness trainer named Steve Miller stepped forward. We need to get you in fighting shape, Mr. Morrison. You've got 2 weeks to prepare for the most important fight in human history. For the next few days, Jake's farm became a training camp. Military experts taught him hand-to-hand combat while scientists explained alien biology. He learned that the Corvani were stronger and faster than humans with natural armor under their skin. The training was brutal. Jake had always been strong from farm work, but combat training was different. He spent hours learning to punch, kick, and grapple. His body ached in ways he had never experienced. You're trying too hard, Amy told him one evening as he soaked his sore muscles in a hot bath. You're not a soldier, Dad, you're a farmer. Maybe you should fight like one. What do you mean? I mean, you've never solved a problem by trying to be someone else. When the tractor breaks down, you don't pretend to be a mechanic. You figure out what's wrong and fix it your way. Jake thought about that as he lay in bed that night. Amy was right. He had always solved problems by being patient, observing carefully and using what he had available. Maybe that was what the aliens had seen in him. Dr. Carter spent hours explaining Corvani physiology. Their bones are denser than ours and their muscles are about 30% stronger. But they evolved on a world with different atmospheric conditions. Earth's air might affect them in ways we don't fully understand yet. Different how? Jake asked. Their planet has higher oxygen content and different mineral traces in the atmosphere. It's subtle, but it might give you an edge if you can figure out how to use it. Jake nodded. In farming, small advantages often made the difference between success and failure. A slightly different soil pH could affect an entire crop. Maybe atmospheric differences could matter in a fight too. The government people wanted to move Jake to a military base for better training facilities, but he refused. I need to stay on my land, he said. This is where I think best. So they brought the training to him. His cornfield became a makeshift combat arena. His barn was converted into a gym. Experts came and went, but Jake and Amy remained the constants. Amy helped her father in ways the experts didn't expect. She reminded him of all the times he had overcome impossible odds. When the drought hit 3 years ago, Everyone said the crops would fail. Jake had found ways to conserve water and save most of the harvest. When the bank tried to foreclose after Lisa's medical bills, Jake had fought them with paperwork and determination until they backed down. "You've been fighting your whole life, Dad," Amy said. "Just not with your fists." Jake began to understand what she meant. Farming was a constant battle against weather, insects, disease, and economics. He had never given up even when things seemed hopeless. That was what had kept the farm running when other families sold out to big corporations. Dr. Carter made an important discovery during the second week. She had been studying recordings of Admiral Zekthor's broadcasts when she noticed something odd. "Look at this," she said, showing Jake a slow-motion video. "Watch his breathing pattern. See how it changes when he talks for more than a few minutes?" Jake watched carefully. The alien's breathing did seem to get slightly heavier during longer speeches. "I think Earth's atmosphere is affecting him more than their medical teams realize," Dr. Carter said. "It's not dangerous, but it might slow him down over time." "Like working in high altitude?" Jake asked. "Exactly. You might have more endurance than he does in a long fight." Jake smiled for the first time in days. In farming, stamina matters more than strength. "I've worked 14-hour days in 100-degree heat. Maybe I can outlast him." The training continued, but Jake began to focus on what he did best. Instead of trying to become a perfect fighter, he worked on being a better version of himself. He practiced patience, observation, and problem-solving under pressure. Amy helped him set up scenarios where he had to think creatively with limited resources. They turned farm equipment into training tools and created obstacles using hay bales and machinery. Jake learned to see opportunities where others saw only problems. On the final day before the combat, Jake sat on his porch with Amy, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and red. The alien ship still hung overhead, silent and waiting. "Are you scared, Dad?" Amy asked. "Terrified," Jake admitted. "But I'm more scared of what happens if I don't try. Your mother always said that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about doing what needs to be done even when you are afraid." Amy leaned against her father's shoulder. "She would be proud of you." "I hope so, sweetheart. I really hope so." That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He walked through his cornfield one more time, touching the stalks his family had been growing for 3 generations. Tomorrow, he would leave this place to fight for the future of humanity. He might never see his home again, but as he stood among the corn, feeling the earth beneath his feet, Jake Morrison the farmer became something more. He became Earth's champion, ready or not. The alien transport ship felt wrong to Jake. Everything was too smooth, too quiet, and too clean. There were no rough edges anywhere, no signs of wear or repair. On his farm, everything showed the marks of hard use and careful maintenance. This ship felt like it had been grown rather than built. Admiral Zekthor greeted Jake personally when he arrived. The alien king was even more impressive in person. His blue-gray skin really did look like armor, and his yellow eyes seemed to see everything. When he spoke, his voice was deep and careful. "Jake Morrison of Earth," Zekthor said, "I am honored to meet you. Our scanners have told us much about your world, but you are not what we expected for a champion." "I get that a lot," Jake replied. He tried to keep his voice steady, but standing next to the alien made him feel very small. "You show no fear." "That is good. Fear makes warriors careless." "Oh, I'm scared," Jake said honestly. "But being scared never stopped me from doing what needed to be done." Zekthor tilted his massive head, studying Jake like he was a puzzle to be solved. "Interesting. Come, let me show you where we will fight." The arena was a perfect circle about the size of a football field. The floor was made of the same crystal material as the ship, but it felt solid under Jake's feet. Strange pillars rose from the ground at regular intervals, and platforms jutted out at different heights. It looked like someone had designed it specifically for combat. "This arena has hosted 17 challenges," Zekthor explained. 17 champions have fallen here. What were they like?" Jake asked. "The other champions? Warriors all. Strong, fast, skilled with weapons. They fought with honor and died with dignity." Jake nodded. "I'm not like them." "No," Zekthor agreed. "You are not. That is why I am curious to see what you will do." Representatives from both species filled viewing areas around the arena. Jake could see Dr. Carter and Colonel Rodriguez in the human section. Amy had wanted to come, but Jake had refused. He didn't want her to see what might happen to him. The rules were simple. No weapons except what could be found or made in the arena. The fight continued until one opponent could no longer continue. Death was not required, but it was common. Jake wore simple protective gear that the humans had designed. It was lighter and more flexible than what the military experts had wanted, but Jake had insisted. He needed to be able to move the way he was used to moving. Zekthor wore ceremonial armor that probably cost more than Jake's entire farm. It covered his chest and arms, but left his legs free for movement. In his hands, he carried two curved weapons that looked like a cross between swords and clubs. "Begin when you are ready," announced a Corvani official. Zekthor moved faster than Jake had expected. The alien crossed half the arena in 3 quick steps, his weapons whistling through the air where Jake's head had been a moment before. Jake rolled behind one of the crystal pillars, his heart hammering. The pillar exploded as Zekthor's weapon hit it. Crystal fragments flew everywhere, and Jake felt several cut his face and arms. He kept moving, using the arena's features to stay ahead of the alien's attacks. "You cannot run forever, human," Zekthor called out. "Face me with honor." "I'm not running," Jake replied, circling around another pillar. "I'm thinking," and he was thinking. Jake watched how Zekthor moved, how he attacked, how he breathed. The alien was incredibly strong and fast, but he fought like someone who was used to winning quickly. He put a lot of power into each strike, expecting to end the fight fast. Jake remembered what Dr. Carter had said about the atmospheric differences. He began to notice that Zekthor's breathing was slightly heavier than it should be. Not much, but enough that Jake's trained eye could spot it. The arena had been designed for combat, but Jake began to see it differently. The pillars weren't just obstacles, they were tools. The platforms weren't just elevated positions, they were leverage points. The crystal fragments from the broken pillar weren't just debris, they were weapons. Jake grabbed a handful of sharp crystal pieces and threw them at Zekthor's face. The alien blocked them easily, but the distraction gave Jake time to reach one of the platforms. He climbed up quickly using his farm-trained agility. Zekthor followed, but the platform was narrow. For the first time, Jake's smaller size was an advantage. He could move around the alien, forcing Zekthor to turn constantly to keep track of him. "Clever," Zekthor admitted, "but cleverness alone will not save you." The alien swung one of his weapons at Jake's legs, trying to knock him off the platform. Jake jumped over the swing and landed on Zekthor's back. For a moment, he had the advantage, but only for a moment. Zekthor reached back, grabbed Jake, and threw him across the arena like he weighed nothing. Jake hit the crystal floor hard and felt something crack in his ribs. He rolled aside just as Zekthor's weapon smashed into the floor where he had been lying. The alien was starting to breathe harder now. The fight had been going on for 10 minutes, longer than Zekthor was used to. Jake got to his feet slowly, pretending to be hurt worse than he was. Zekthor approached more cautiously now, recognizing that the human was more dangerous than he had first appeared. "You fight strangely," Zekthor said. "Not like a warrior." "Because I'm not a warrior," Jake replied. "I'm a farmer. We solve problems differently." Jake had been studying the arena while they talked. He had noticed something the alien designers probably hadn't intended. Some of the pillars were positioned in a way that created natural leverage points. If he could get Zekthor in the right position. Jake feinted left, then dove right, rolling between Zekthor's legs. The alien spun to follow him, but Jake was already moving toward a specific pillar. He grabbed a loose piece of crystal debris and jammed it into what looked like a control panel at the base of the pillar. The pillar began to move, tilting toward Zekthor. The alien stepped aside easily, but that was what Jake had wanted. The movement put Zekthor exactly where Jake needed him. Jake kicked a piece of debris toward another pillar, hitting a similar control panel. That pillar also began to tilt, and suddenly Zekthor was caught between two moving surfaces with nowhere to go but up. The alien jumped onto one of the tilting pillars, showing his incredible athletic ability. But Jake had been counting on that. He had studied how Zekthor moved, and he knew the alien always chose the most direct, powerful solution. As Zekthor landed on the pillar, Jake was already in motion. He had climbed onto a platform that gave him a clear angle at the alien. For the first time in the fight, Jake had position and momentum on his side. He launched himself at Zekthor, not trying to fight the alien's strength, but using it against him. When Zekthor tried to block, Jake twisted around the alien's guard. When Zekthor tried to grab him, Jake used the alien's own momentum to send them both crashing to the arena floor. They landed hard, with Jake somehow ending up on top. For just a moment, he had the alien king pinned. Impossible. someone in the Corvani viewing area whispered. But Jake knew it wouldn't last. He could feel Zekthor gathering his strength for a throw that would probably break several of Jake's bones. So instead of trying to hold the pin, Jake did something unexpected. He started talking. "Why do you do this?" Jake asked, still trying to hold Zekthor down even though he knew it was hopeless. Why conquer worlds through combat instead of just taking them? Zekthor could have thrown Jake across the arena, but something in the human's voice made him pause. "You wish to talk while we fight?" "My wife used to say I never knew when to shut up," Jake replied. "But yeah, I'm curious. You could have just invaded Earth with your superior technology. Why give us a chance at all?" Zekthor did throw him then, but not as hard as he could have. Jake rolled with the impact and came up on his feet, surprised to still be conscious. "Because honor demands it," Zekthor said, getting to his feet more slowly than before. The long fight was wearing on him. "And because we need allies, not just slaves." "Allies against what?" Zekthor hesitated for a moment, then raised his weapons again. "That is not your concern, human. You will either join our empire or be conquered by it." But Jake had seen something in the alien's yellow eyes. Fear. Not fear of Jake. Fear of something else entirely. They began fighting again. But now Jake fought differently. Instead of just trying to survive, he tried to understand. He watched not just how Zekthor moved, but why he moved that way. The alien fought like someone who was always looking over his shoulder, always preparing for a greater threat. "The Devourers," Jake said suddenly, dodging another swing. "Dr. Carter mentioned them in one of her briefings. That's what you're really afraid of, isn't it?" Zekthor's attack faltered for just a moment, but it was enough to confirm Jake's guess. "The 17 worlds you conquered," Jake continued, circling around a pillar. "You didn't take them because you wanted to rule them. You took them because you needed them. For defense, silence," Zekthor roared. But there was pain in his voice now, not just anger. Jake kept talking as they fought. "What are they? The Devourers?" "Death," Zekthor replied, his breathing getting heavier. "They are death itself. Machines that consume everything in their path. Worlds, stars, entire civilizations. Nothing stops them. How long before they reach this part of the galaxy? Perhaps 50 of your years. Perhaps less." Jake absorbed this information while dodging another attack. Everything made sense now. The Corvani weren't just conquerors. They were refugees, gathering strength for a last stand against something worse than anything humanity had ever imagined. "And you think Earth can help?" Jake asked. "Your species shows unusual qualities," Zekthor admitted. "Our scans revealed adaptability and determination beyond what your technology should allow. But one world cannot stand against the Devourers alone." The arena's lighting system flickered, drawing both fighters' attention. Something was wrong with the ship's power systems. Jake saw Zekthor's eyes widen in alarm. "What's happening?" Jake asked. "System malfunction," Zekthor said, but he sounded worried. "The arena's gravity controls are unstable." As if to prove his point, Jake suddenly felt lighter. The artificial gravity was fluctuating, making it hard to predict how movements would work. What had been a disadvantage for Jake, his smaller size and lower mass, suddenly became an advantage. But then Jake saw the real problem. One of the arena's power conduits had been damaged during their fight, probably when Zekthor had destroyed that first pillar. Electricity was arcing across the damaged section, and it was getting worse. The whole system could overload, Jake realized. This ship could lose power. "Impossible," Zekthor said, but Jake could see he was worried too. The electrical discharge was growing stronger, sending bolts of energy across the arena floor. Both fighters had to keep moving to avoid being electrocuted. But Jake noticed something that Zekthor didn't. The alien's heavy armor was conducting electricity. If Zekthor got too close to the damaged conduit, he would be killed instantly. Jake could have let it happen. He could have maneuvered Zekthor toward the electrical hazard and won the fight by default. It would have saved Earth and probably made him a hero. Instead, he tackled Zekthor away from the danger zone. They hit the arena floor hard, with Jake's shoulder taking most of the impact. Pain shot through his already injured ribs, but he had succeeded in pushing the alien king to safety. Zekthor stared at Jake in complete confusion. "Why? You could have let me die. You would have won." "Because that's not who I am," Jake said simply, "and it's not who humans are. We don't win by letting others die when we could save them." For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Around them, The arena's emergency systems were kicking in, stabilizing the power flow and fixing the gravity. The immediate danger was passing. "You saved my life," Zekthor said slowly. "Yeah, well, don't let it go to your head." Zekthor actually laughed, a deep, rumbling sound that Jake felt in his chest. "Your species is indeed unusual, Jake Morrison of Earth." They helped each other to their feet. Both fighters were exhausted, battered, and bleeding from dozens of small cuts. The formal combat could have continued, but something had changed between them. "Tell me about the Devourers," Jake said. "The real story." Zekthor looked around the arena at the watching crowds from both species, then back at Jake. "They appeared in our galaxy 500 years ago. No one knows where they came from. They are not alive as we understand life. They are machines, but machines with intelligence and purpose. What do they want? Everything. They consume matter and energy to build more of themselves. Each world they destroy makes them stronger. We have fought them for centuries, but they learn from every battle. They adapt faster than we can." Jake nodded slowly. "And you've been building an empire to have enough strength to fight them." "Yes. Each world we conquer adds to our military potential. But it has never been enough. The Devourers destroyed the Corvani homeworld 60 years ago. We are all refugees now, holding together an alliance of 17 different species. 18, Jake corrected, if you'll have us. Zekthor studied Jake's face carefully. "You would join us willingly? Even knowing that we may all die fighting the Devourers? Better to die fighting than to die doing nothing," Jake replied. "Besides, you haven't met humans when they're really angry. We can be pretty stubborn when someone threatens our home." The alien king smiled, showing teeth that were slightly too sharp to be comfortable. "Yes, I am beginning to understand that about your species." Around them, the arena had gone completely quiet. Both the human and Corvani observers were trying to figure out what was happening. The formal combat had stopped, but neither fighter had been defeated. "What happens now?" Jake asked. "Now," Zekthor said, "we begin a different kind of fight. One where humans and Corvani stand together instead of against each other." The formal end of the combat was unlike anything in Corvani history. Zekthor stood in the center of the arena, his armor dented and his breathing still heavy from the long fight. Jake stood beside him, looking small next to the alien king, but somehow not diminished by it. "The combat is ended," Zekthor announced to the watching crowds, "but not in defeat or victory. It ends in understanding." The Corvani observers looked confused. Their traditions had no provision for this kind of outcome. The human representatives seemed equally puzzled, though Dr. Carter was taking notes frantically. "Jake Morrison of Earth has proven his species worthy of something greater than conquest or protection," Zekthor continued. "He has shown courage, ingenuity, and honor. Most importantly, he has shown that humans possess a quality we have lost in our long war: hope." Zekthor turned to face Jake directly. "I offer Earth full membership in the Corvani Alliance, not as a conquered world, but as an equal partner in the fight for survival." The arena erupted in discussion. Corvani officials argued in their own language while human representatives tried to contact their governments. But Jake just nodded. "We accept," he said simply. "You cannot speak for your entire world," one of the Corvani officials protested. "No," Jake agreed, "but I can speak for what humans are like when we're facing the impossible. We don't give up and we don't abandon our friends." 3 hours later, Jake was back on Earth, standing in his cornfield and trying to make sense of what had happened. The alien ships still hung in the sky, but now they felt less threatening. Amy ran from the house and hugged him so hard his injured ribs protested. "I watched the whole thing," she said. "The aliens broadcast it to every TV on Earth. Dad, you were amazing." "I was terrified," Jake admitted. "But I guess that worked out okay." Dr. Carter and Colonel Rodriguez arrived soon after, along with what seemed like half the U.S. government. Everyone wanted to know what Jake had learned about the aliens and what the alliance would mean for Earth. "It means we have a lot of work to do," Jake told them, "and not much time to do it." The next few months changed everything. Corvani engineers worked with human scientists to upgrade Earth's technology. Human agricultural experts shared farming techniques that worked surprisingly well on alien worlds. Military advisors from both species began planning joint defense strategies. Jake found himself at the center of it all, serving as an unofficial ambassador between the species. He didn't want the job, but nobody else seemed able to bridge the gap between human thinking and Corvani logic. "You understand both sides. Dr. Carter explained when Jake complained about all the meetings he had to attend. They trust you because you earned their respect in combat. We trust you because you're one of us. The farm became a meeting place where humans and aliens could work together on practical problems. Jake's cornfield was turned into a testing ground for new agricultural techniques that combined human adaptability with Corvani technology. Amy threw herself into studying xenobiology, working with Dr. Carter to understand how different species could cooperate effectively. She was 17 now and talking about studying alien cultures in college. "I want to be ready for when we meet other species," she told her father. "The Corvani Alliance has 18 member worlds now. That's 18 different ways of thinking and solving problems." Zekthor visited the farm regularly, much to the amazement of Jake's neighbors. The alien king had become genuinely fond of Earth, particularly the agricultural regions that reminded him of his lost home world. "Your species has a gift," he told Jake one evening as they sat on the farmhouse porch watching the sunset. "You see possibilities where others see only problems. The Corvani are strong and honorable, but we have become rigid in our thinking. 500 years of war will do that to a people." "What were the Corvani like before the war?" Jake asked. "We were farmers too, in a way. We grew crystals instead of plants, but the principles were similar. Patience, observation, careful tending of what you hoped would grow. War changed us into something harder and more focused." Jake nodded. "War changes everyone, but it doesn't have to be permanent." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. Some of those stars were now allied worlds, part of a growing coalition that might actually have a chance against the Devourers. "How long do we really have?" Jake asked eventually. 47 years, according to our best calculations. The Devourers are consuming the outer systems of this galaxy arm. They will reach the Corvani core worlds first, then Earth. That's enough time to prepare if we use it wisely." "Yes," Zekthor agreed. "But preparation alone will not be enough. We need something the Devourers have never encountered before. Something they cannot adapt to." Jake smiled. "Well, they've never fought humans before. We specialize in doing things nobody expects." The alien king's laugh was becoming a familiar sound around the farm. "Yes, I have noticed this about your species. Perhaps that will be enough." As the months passed, Earth transformed from an isolated world into a key member of an interstellar alliance. Human ingenuity combined with alien technology created innovations that surprised everyone involved. Earth's communication networks were upgraded to handle faster-than-light messaging. The planet's defenses were strengthened with energy shields and particle beam weapons. But the most important changes were smaller and more personal. Human farmers learned to grow crops that could feed a dozen different alien species. Corvani engineers discovered that human-style problem-solving could improve their manufacturing processes. Children from both species began learning each other's languages and customs. Jake often stood in his cornfield in the evening, looking up at the alien ships that were no longer alien. They were part of Earth's defenses now, and their crews had become neighbors and friends. The Corvani had given humanity advanced technology and protection. In return, humans had given the Corvani something they had almost forgotten: hope for a future beyond just survival. Amy was right, Jake reflected. He had been fighting his whole life, just not with his fists. Fighting drought and economic hardship and personal loss. Fighting to keep his family's farm running when bigger operations tried to buy him out. Fighting to raise a daughter alone after cancer took his wife. Now he was fighting for something bigger: the survival of not just humanity, but of 18 different species spread across the galaxy. It should have been overwhelming, but somehow it felt natural. It was just a larger farm that needed tending. The Devourers were still coming. In 47 years they would reach this part of the galaxy and the real war would begin. But for the first time in centuries, the Corvani Alliance had something they had never possessed before: a species that specialized in impossible victories. Jake Morrison had never wanted to be a hero. He had just wanted to grow corn and raise his daughter and keep his family's farm running. But sometimes the universe had different plans for people. As he stood among the cornstalks his grandfather had planted, watching alien ships patrol the skies above Nebraska, Jake couldn't help but smile. The impossible had become ordinary, and ordinary people had become extraordinary. The farmer had struck back, and somehow that had been enough to change everything.